everybody, and welcome to my show. I am Shaney Entertaining. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that is pretty near and dear to me, and that is all the reboots and remakes, and why they fail so goddamn many times. I don't know, man. If you're like me, okay, you were raised in the 80s, some of you in the 90s, some of you are raised today. Believe it or not, it's true. But if you were raised in the 80s like I was, in the 90s and the 70s, and it doesn't matter when you were raised, but if you were raised at a time, you obviously have things in your childhood that you want to see remade, rebooted, or redone. It's not all the time. Some things don't really need to be remade, but there are reasons for why most of us really want to see things done again. Point in case, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Trek, Ghostbusters. These are things we all wanted to see either part 3 of. Most of the times you don't want to see a reboot, but a lot of the times you want to see, like Indiana Jones. We all wanted to see a part 4 until we saw it, and then we were like, why? It was so hard to watch the Crystal Skull and Old Man Jones. Whoosh! Oh, my back! It was, and these things, okay, so we were raised in the 80s and the 90s, and we want to see our remakes, and we want to see reboots to an extent, right? Now, 90% of the time, Hollywood fails. And it's not always Hollywood's fault, by the way. Believe it or not, all you have to do is look at the man in the mirror. Ow! Hee hee! Michael Jackson. I'm bringing him back, baby. Not the pedophilia part. Children, just so you know, pedophilia is wrong. So which brings the question, okay, guys? Why? Why do we, in my generation, younger generation, and even a little older generation, why do we want to see reboots? Why is it so important to us to see a reboot, to see the remake, right? Why? That is the main issue, guys. I just want to understand. The why we want to see this is why Hollywood fails. Why we fail ourselves as well, okay? And you have to understand, that is the crux of the issue. It's the why. Why do I want to see it? And everyone's going to say, screaming out there, nostalgia! Speak up! Sonny, these ears are not quite as good as they once were.
I think he's just toying with us.
We said nostalgia! Nostalgia, yeah, that's right. What'd he say? I'm not that old. Yeah, it's nostalgia, right? Now, what does nostalgia mean? And that's the thing, everyone says nostalgia, everyone talks about nostalgia, but no one really, I don't think they fully comprehend what nostalgia is and what it means. And that's the crux of the issue, guys. That's sort of the meat and potatoes of the beef stew. If you don't got the meat and potatoes of the beef stew, all you got is a soup. You get it? You need the meat and potatoes because you ordered a stew, you didn't order the soup, and now I'm hungry. And now I'm stopping this video because I'm going to go get some beef stew. Alright, I'm back. I didn't, but I wanted. So what am I talking about by the meat and potatoes? Well, the meat and potatoes of the nostalgia are the feels. It's the warm, cockly feeling inside that you get when you see something. Now, why do you get that feeling? And that's the question. Let's keep going with the whys. Why does nostalgia bring out a feeling? I'll give you an example. A lot of people, maybe like your father, he was watching, and you ever notice when you sit down listening to like Barry Manilow, not you, but your father was listening to Barry Manilow or the Beatles, and they talk to you about, I remember the Beatles, and I'm like, oh really, Dad? Yeah, I remember I was sitting in my car in my Chevy by the levee, but the levee was dry. And, and me and my gal here, we were at Lover's Lane, and that's when that song, Love Me Do, came on the radio, and that just put us in the mood for loving, and that's when I had my first premature ejaculation. Now, you will always remember that song, Love Me Do, every time you prematurely ejaculate. Well, you get what I mean. Now, the first time you're with your girl, and you're in the, you're dating your girlfriend, and the first time you have your first sexual encounter, or your first moment of love, or whatever you're feeling, it'll always be associated with that song, Love Me Do, forever. That's what happens. So then, why do you want to hear Love Me Do again? Is it because you like the song? Sure. It's because you like the song. It's part of it. But the other part is when you hear it later on, it unlocks. Like, we all have memories. As we go through the course of our life, everybody, in case you didn't know, we all just accumulate memories. We remember some are good, some are bad, some are meh. The older we get, the more memories we accumulate, the more faint and distant the old memories get. And some of these old memories are the memories we cherish. We want to remember them. them, right? And this is where I take more of a serious tone, everyone. So when you hear Love Me Do on the radio, in the oldie station, you're like, love me do. When you're an older person who's now maybe you're working, you got 5 kids who are screaming at you every day, you suck, Dad, your stuff sucks, you're old, shut up. I don't know why the kids sound like they're old. They're more like, you suck, Dad, you smell of rye and gin, and I'd hate you, and I don't like your face, and everything about you is old, and you should die, right? And you go to your job, and your boss is like, you suck, you're old, you don't know what you're doing, and your wife is like, I don't want to have a headache, leave me alone. And throughout the course of your life is just so shiznit most of the time, and I'm bringing out the shiznit, because this is a PG-13. No, it's not. So when you're going through the grind of your life, and all you see is just giant dumpster fire, and some of it isn't, some of it's great. I mean, let's be honest, not everybody's life is shiznit. Not everybody's life is crap, right? And not every moment of your life is crap. But we do tend to live in moments, and what these memories do, these nostalgic memory moments, is that it unlocks those moments in your life. When you hear the Beatles going, love me do, in the oldies station, it'll remind you of that moment that you had not forgotten, but just you put away. You stashed it. You stashed it in a box in the back of your memory just for safekeeping. And what this is it's a key. It's the key. Love Me Do becomes the key. The twists unlocks the box with the memory of you and your premature ejaculated moment in your car with your girl. And then you have that warm, cuddly feeling, right? And that's like, oh yeah, I remember that song. I love this song. Why do I love this song? Do I love this song? Yeah, it's a good song, but I love the moment. I love the moment that's associated and attached to that song. And that, my friends, is nostalgia. And that is what we look for when we want reboots, remakes of our movies. And that's why both Hollywood fails and both we fail ourselves, is because we hope to unlock the box that will reopen those moments. Because 90% of the time, when we like something or we don't like something, it's not always a rational thought. You know, if we could rationally, and I'll give you an example, I'm going to go off topic just a little bit, but love. If we could rationalize why you love something or don't love something or somebody, like it could be a hot chick. She walks through the door. She's got well endowed in the boobies, and she's got long neck, and she's like, hi. You know, and she's got all the things that you crave and you want, but something about her, you just can't figure it out. What is it? What is it about her? Is it her breath? Is it her tone of voice? Is it her laugh? There's something about her, it's just off. Chemistry's wrong. I don't understand why. I want to love this person. I just can't love this person. She loves me. She says it. We have a good time. I just can't bring myself to love her. And no matter how much you try, you're never going to bring yourself to love this person, because love sometimes is weird that way. You never know. You know chemistry 90% of the time. And if the chemistry is wrong, then it doesn't matter how much you love someone, or you want to love someone, or you try to love someone, you cannot bring yourself to love someone. When you love somebody, I promised myself I wouldn't sing. So you get what I'm trying to say, guys. And because 90% of the time, it's not a rational thing. You could go see a movie, you could go see a thing and say, hey, wait a minute, this had all the beats, it was right, it looked good, the story structure was great, the acting was fantastic, the effects were on point, all this stuff was fine. What happened? Why did I leave this movie feeling like shit? Why did I leave this movie not feeling what I wanted to feel? Why did I leave this movie not with those warmy vibes that I wanted? And that is because Hollywood doesn't understand the why. They don't understand. When they bring a clone of something and show it to your face, it'd be like that Beatles song being sung by someone else in a completely different tone. It'd be like someone saying, instead of love me do, oh, love me do, someone to love, somebody who, someone to love, someone like you, boom, boom. It'd be like that, it's only sung like this. Love me do. You know I love you. Why do I sound like the Swedish chef? Understand that I love you. You get what I'm trying to say, guys, right? You understand? The reason it doesn't feel the same way is because the voice is wrong, the tone is wrong, it's off key, the lyrics are there, the beat might even be there, the music might even be there. It's off. There's something off, the voice, the soul of it is gone, and that's pretty much why these things fail. right? That's why these nostalgic movies, these movies that we want to see, and be honest with yourself, guys. Yeah, we do want to see good movie. We do want to see good effects, good visuals, good storytelling. We want to see all that stuff for sure. We are much more forgiving if you give me that feeling. And I'll give you a prime example is The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was a very flawed movie, and after the fact, everyone left the movie going, I liked it. And then afterwards, everyone held all these things. Oh, but you know, Rey is a Mary Sue. Kylo Ren is a baby. You know, they rehashed, you know, the Death Star. They rehashed all these old things, and see, that's where Hollywood doesn't seem to get it. They don't necessarily want the fact that you're rehashing the old stuff. It's not the rehashing of seeing the Death Star in itself that makes you, or seeing old Leia or old Han Solo that gives you the feelies. It's not necessarily that. It's like you can listen to someone else sing the song, "Love Me Do," but sometimes someone else singing the song could sound so good and so remarkable and still capture that feeling. You get what I mean? Like if you go to a Beatles, I keep going back to the Beatles. I don't know why. 90% of my viewers will be like, I don't know who the Beatles are. Yeah, are they PewDiePie? Is PewDiePie the Beatles? Yes, PewDiePie is the Beatles, and so is Drake. We shall never ever say that again. So the feeling of nostalgia can come from not just visual cues like seeing an old timer, because when you see an old timer like Leia or Han Solo or Luke, it doesn't ring true to you because that's not that's not the visual cue you remember. Seeing an old man with a scruffy beard eating titty milk out of a teat of a walrus, it doesn't have that visual cue for you. It's like, that's Luke, kinda, sorta. You know, Han Solo, like, he looked a little more like Han Solo than Luke did, right? Let's be honest, he had a little more of a, so they kind of did it right that way because Han Solo was still with Chewie, and when they walked in together, we were home. And they gave you that nostalgic feeling for that moment. Why? Well, because, and even that was a stupid scene. I mean, think about it. The odds of them being out there at the same time as the Millennium Falcon, you know, that was a stupid moment in The Force Awakens, but we forgave that because what followed it was Chewie, Chewie, we're home. Oh my God! Look, it's an older Harrison Ford, but he looks close enough to the Harrison Ford we remember, in association with the Millennium Falcon, and then you felt that. Oh my God. Feelies, right? It gave you that moment that was like, that's what we wanted. We wanted that moment. We wanted to see him reintroduced to Chewie into that ship. It was like friends coming together. We got that moment. And that's sort of after that moment, we could forgive a lot of the stuff that happened. And then when he meets Leia again, and that's another one, that Leia's there and they look at each other and they hug and they have that moment between, you know, Han and Leia. That was the moment you wanted. It had all the feelies there that brought it together. You could forgive the plot holes. You could forgive the Mary Sues. You could forgive all that stuff because it gave you, and the practical effects associated with like that in conjunction with the practical effects, the sounds, all the ships that were very reminiscent. It gave you more of a feeling of Star Wars. Then I'll even argue that the prequels. Yes, there's a lot of issues with the prequels. I don't think I hated the prequels as much as others did. I thought it was okay, but it didn't feel like Star Wars. And let's be honest. When you watch the prequels, I think the major flaw of it was it didn't feel like Star Wars at all. The tone was different. The practical effects were not. Well, I mean, I know they had practical effects, but it felt so CGI because they finally went into digital. It wasn't filmed on film; it was filmed on digital, and that's another reason it looked mostly like a video game or a cartoon effects. It didn't look real, so it took you out of it. And I think only the last one, the Revenge of the Sith, did it start to feel more like Star Wars, where the ships kind of felt more real, the sounds felt more real, you know, the tone felt more like Star Wars towards the end, where the first two had nothing, it was like two separate movies in two separate universes. And you could appreciate it from that point of view, but it was called Star Wars, and so your brain couldn't put it together. It's like, it feels telling me it's Star Wars, but it doesn't feel like Star Wars, you know? And I think that was a fatal flaw of the movie, one of the fatal flaws of the movie. There's tons, but that's one of them. And I didn't mind them so much. I'm not one of those I'm not a hater of those, of the prequels. I'm one of those, I'm not an apologist for them either, but I know they have issues. It's just, I didn't hate them as much. But that's what I'm trying to say, and that's what we have to understand. That's when we look for these movies as an audience, as a people who were raised And this is where I think new fans of Star Wars and The Last Jedi don't understand, okay? The new fans who weren't raised in the 70s, and I consider myself one of those people who were not. I was old enough to see Star Wars as a child, but I was way too young to really appreciate what I saw. So it wasn't until after I saw it when I was a little older that I really grasped what it was. Unlike everyone else in the fact that, as a kid, yes, I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. However, I didn't grasp the meaning of what the movie meant to these people, who were really much more mature, and they will take it far more seriously. This thing got way more serious than I wanted. The tone has changed. I don't mind, I get a little serious at times. So when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate Star Wars the same way as they did. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. In the 1970s, right, Star Wars was groundbreaking in a way that had never been seen before. And you have to understand what that means, okay? That means something to these people. Because you're going to see an experience. Remember, Star Wars wasn't just a movie that you saw. Star Wars was an experience that you felt. You had to feel it. And I wasn't part of that. I understand it. I understand it because it happened to me later on with Jurassic Park. And I'll get to why. I'm not comparing the two movies. If you say, how dare you compare Star Wars to Jurassic Park? It's just preposterous. Relax. Keep your panties in your pants, all right? Take it easy. What I'm trying to say is how it made me feel and how the impact to cinema were similar. And this is what I mean. When you went to go watch Star Wars, it gave you visuals you had never seen before. Lightsaber battles. It gave you villains that were just iconic and epic. It gave you monsters and creatures so well done that it almost felt real for the time. It gave you like space battles that had never been seen before, with the effects that really, it took you from sitting on your seat watching something to being in the theater experiencing something. When you're into it, you're in the movie. It's a park ride. It's an exhilaration feeling, and that's why people want to go see it again and again and again. And yes, the story was thin, and yes, all these feelings you got while watching this movie. With an experience, you get more feelings. And when you watch it, you can forgive all the plot holes, all the issues with the movie. For instance, strike me down and I shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. And then the whole rest of the three movies, all he did was whisper, use the Force. Hey, told you I was going to be powerful. Use the Force, Luke. Because he wouldn't figure that out on his own. If he was alive, he could have still done it on the radio. Hey, Luke, you still have that visual scanner thing on? Uh-huh. Use the Force. Oh, okay. Could have done it without being a Force ghost. That was my plot hole at the time. I kept waiting for Obi-Wan to become more powerful than he could possibly imagine. And I just all I kept seeing was, you gotta go to Dagobah. I was like, you could have just emailed me that, buddy. You could have been alive for this. You didn't need to be dead. You didn't need to stand there like a stone, taking a swipe. Letting Darth Vader cut you down. You could have done all this alive, right? There was nothing that Obi-Wan did as a Force ghost that he couldn't have done if he was living, through email or Twitter. Hashtag use the Force. So those were moments that as you forgave all them because you were so freaking mesmerized by the visual effects, and there was good storytelling. It still had heart. And it's important. Heart is another way of bringing an emotion. As long as you bring out an emotion in a viewer, whether it's through visual effects, through story, of course, through characters, those are the things that you need in a story to bring out an emotion and a feeling. And I have to understand. You have to understand the feeling in any movie is what is the most important. And this is something that even people who are in marketing, they understand this. They understand this better than everybody else. Because they know that through marketing, when you're actually trying to do a commercial, what is the first thing a commercial tries to do? They want to associate their product with an emotion that they want you to feel, right? So for instance, those long distance commercials were like, when was the last time you spoke with your auntie in Portugal? I'm so happy to speak to you. Oh my God, I don't know. Bell, bringing people closer together. In Canada, they do it through making us feel pride from being Canadian, right? It's like, if you're Canadian, you're going to sit down watching a hockey game with your buddies Hey, we're drinking Canadian beer, eh? Watching your hockey game, because that's what Canadians do, eh? I am Canadian because I watch hockey drinking my Canadian beer with your buddies, and that's what being a Canadian's all about, eh? And that's what, as Canadians, that's what we're told. And then Americans, Budweiser does it to them, and it's trying to associate a feeling of either nostalgia or a feeling of sadness or a feeling of, the smoking commercials do it. They scare you. It's all about trying to bring a feeling and associate it with the product. And they understand that. And that's what movies do. And that's what nostalgia does. You instinctively, your brain does that trick where you see something and you instantly associate it with a feeling. And I want to go back because I want to talk about comparing Jurassic Park to Star Wars because I feel a lot of people need an explanation. When I was a kid, I was still a teenager. I was a teenager and I was watching Jurassic Park. The reason why Jurassic Park, I associate that with Star Wars is because I kind of feel like that's how I must have felt to some degree when someone saw Star Wars for the first time. Was because Jurassic Park was like, for the first time, dinosaurs were real and were in my bloody theater. And I was, that scene with the T-Rex chasing chasing the Jeep and things may appear closer than they appear. Oh my God, I was like, ah! I was legitimately frightened. I was legitimately in that moment. I was in that experience. I was there. Didn't need 3D and any of that, but I experienced that as if I was there. That's how good that was. The stories, again, Jurassic Park was a very lightened story. It had some heart. It had some nice moments. But in the end, it was just sort of an experience you felt, and I want to see that. I think I saw that movie like 3, 4, 5 times in the theater at the time. But I remember just the feeling I got while watching that movie. That's another thing. How that movie changed cinema. Because after Jurassic Park, CGI took over. It was like, whoa, the shit that they could do with CGI now, movies changed forever after that, right? And the same thing with Star Wars. Star Wars set the bar for how cinema was filmed after that, how these action movies, how things were trying, and nothing could ever reach that moment because nothing could recapture the feeling of the first kiss. Star Wars kissed them for the first time, right? Jurassic Park gave me my first kiss, and you're never going to recapture that. You can fall in love 1,000 times, but you're never going to recapture your first kiss, right? We understand that, and that's why nostalgia, well, good, it'll never be perfect. You'll never be able to recapture your first kiss, and most of us understand that. Most of us go through life, we understand that, right? We understand that you're never going to feel the same way as you did when you got your first kiss. As you grown-ups, you understand that. But we still want to experience something very similar to that. We do still want that sort of feeling. Force Awakens gave us a bit of that. It wasn't perfect. It had tons and tons of flaws. But we forgave a lot of that. Most of us did. Some of us didn't. Some people still will sit there and go, nope, it's still a clone. It doesn't feel right. Nope. Yeah, there was a lot of people who did not like The Force Awakens. I wasn't one of them. I liked it. And I liked it because it gave me the feeling. It made me feel right. The Last Jedi didn't. It failed completely. Failed at the nostalgia. And I thought for the first time, actually, Hollywood was starting to get it. And, Rocky Balboa, the last movie, which was not Rocky Balboa, what was it called? Creed. Creed, I thought maybe Hollywood was starting to understand. Creed gave you the tone of the Rocky movies. The feeling of the Rocky movies. And it did it in a way that was different and new. Felt like a sequel, felt like it was part of the universe. You know what I mean? It felt part of it. Gave you the same feeling in a different way as it'll never recapture the original moments of Rocky. Never. But it still kind of gave you similar feelings and people really genuinely liked it. It kept it within the universe, kept it fun, gave us a new story involving a character and the new characters, and it made sense. It made sense that he was older. He was doing things that was older. And yeah, it was a little bit sad to see an older character do older things because we kind of still want to vision Rocky, Rocky, what's the matter with you, Rock? You're fighting, you get in the ring and run around and chase the chicken.
Hey, get off my back. I'm going to fight this guy, okay? Ding, ding.
We remember Rocky from those. Now we get this old set.
How you doing? I'm Rocky, Yeah, hey, let me train you, okay? Let me train you, right?
And it still felt like Rocky because Stallone almost was seamless how he went from doing other stuff to Rocky, which is great. He deserved an award for that. But not just him. That was an entirely great cast. The whole movie was great. Creed, I thought Hollywood was starting to understand. They were starting to get it. And then when you saw Force Awakens, it was like, it's a soft reboot. They understood that maybe they have to associate the fan, bring in the fans, the newer fans, the old fans. But with this movie coming in, The Last Jedi, you can tell they don't understand. They don't get it. It was just a fluke. They fluked it the first time. Or J.J. See, I give credit to J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams understood that a little bit. I mean, I know that a lot of people hate on JJ, but I think he was raised, I think he learned, didn't he learn from Spielberg? Someone tell me if he didn't. I think he did. I think he did learn from Spielberg. I think he kind of understood how these movies meant to people. And I think that's, while it was light on the story and while it didn't mimic a lot of shit, I think he understood that as long as you bring that feeling back to people, like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, I was like, holy shit. Give this guy a medal. I mean, you know how hard Star Trek fans are to please? I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm a Trekkie. But, you know, when I went to go see the new remake, I was like, nope. I went in this movie thinking I wasn't going to like it. Not only did I think, I was like, nope. I didn't care what you do. This isn't Spock. It's not Captain Kirk. That's not Bones. I'm not watching this shit. I went in like this. Screw you. Not watching it. I'm watching it, but I'm not going to like it. But I liked it. Why? That whole going back in time thing, it was like, he did it. He brought something old, changed it so it didn't offend me as much, and put it new. And said, this is a new timeline, everybody. Star Trek's always changing timelines, so here's a different timeline. So I was like, wait a minute, I want to hate you, but it was like a loophole he found in the system. JJ the loophole finder. He found the loophole. It was like, wait a minute, I can't get mad at this. It makes too much goddamn sense. It makes sense in the universe that, yeah, there has been many time changes. This would be another time change, and by God, it makes sense. All right, JJ, you pulled a fast one on me. Good one, buddy. Good one. So I could appreciate it from a different level. It still didn't have the feelings, but now it felt like a new thing doing its own sort of thing, and it kind of felt like a cheap trick. Not the band, the act. That's how you can find a loophole, and J.J. Abrams did it. I think he tried to do it this time with Star Wars, and he was almost successful, but then, you know, The Last Jedi came, and you want to see my review on The Last Jedi, go to the review of The Last Jedi. I'm not going to go into all of it again. There's a lot of things that just completely don't sync at all. It felt like two separate movies doing two separate things, and it's what it was. So how do you fix this? How do you make it so that people can get those feelies and make a good movie? It's a very hard thing to do. It's a hard road to navigate through. You know, and I think that Creed is a great example of how you can do it. It is another great example of how you can do it. Which was, I mean, most of us who watched it the first time realized it was kind of a crappy quality, made-for-TV movie. We had a good feeling about it because we were younger, and that's pretty much as good as those TV movies got. So we liked it based on that, and it was pretty scary for a TV movie, right? For a made-for-television movie. So put that in the theater, now it kind of could do new things and had better effects, but what they captured in it was so good at doing it, was that it understood that the core of the movie, the feeling of the movie was this. It was the kids. It was the relationship with the kids. It was the kids growing up together. It was the feeling of the kids it was the feeling of the 80s and how the 80s and the kids and the bikes, like Stranger Things, it's the same thing. They understood it. This is what we feel. This is what we remember. It's the kids and how they came together. How these misfit kids with this really weird town and these really weird, horrible adults, they had to bond together against not just the adults, not just this weird town, but this weird sinister force and creature that was constantly after them and trying to, you know, like drain their will. And they understand what the core of the feeling of the movie was meant to be, and they captured it brilliantly. And I had my doubts. I watched the trailer and I was like, I don't know. First, the trailer sort of felt like this new style of doing movies, but it was completely pleasant surprise for me. I loved it because it made you feel. It was like the nostalgia. They understood the feelings that the 80s means to us, and it brought out that feeling and made us feel that way. I'm saying the word feel a lot because I feel very strongly about my feelings towards the feelings that I have. So, you understand? And now I'm going to talk about Ghostbusters. Where Ghostbusters, and I said it right off the bat, okay? I had an argument with my brother. My brother said, no, it'll be fine. I said, no, you don't understand. You don't get it, buddy. You don't understand. We nostalgic people from the time of the 80s are crazy. We want our feelies. And they're introducing these girls. I had no issue with an all-female. Oh, I do. I do have, I'm not going to be one of those that I had no issue with an all-female cast. I did. And what I mean by I had an issue with it, I don't have an issue that they're women, per se. I had an issue that you kind of changed all the guys to all the girls. And the reasoning for why. It was almost like, because we want to. We don't have to, but we're doing it to prove a point. No, you don't make movies to prove a point. You don't make movies, you don't screw up with a classic just so that you can, tell everyone, how progressive you are. No, I do have an issue with that. I do have an issue. So if you do it in a natural way that seems natural to the story, in a way that makes more sense, does it make sense that all female people are going to be into paranormal after all the males were in a sequel? Yes and no. I mean, if they just all happen to be daughters and women that get together, sure, if it's done properly, if you see that all the 4 Ghostbusters had daughters or friends that were fans that were all women and then wanted to become the new Ghostbusters, and then alongside the old Ghostbusters came together to pass the torch kind of thing, like Creed, sort of a way to do it, which I thought should have been done. It was just the pass of the torch. It could have been done better that way. But because they went in this whole in-your-face sort of, I am woman, hear me roar, sort of approach to this whole movie, that kind of turned us off. And it was like, yeah, I don't like your motives for making it all women. It's not that you made it all women, but yet it is. You did it with a motive to like stick it to me, and I didn't like that, and I appreciate that. And then you want me. And here's another thing. Hollywood tends to use the nostalgia factor, and this is a prime example. To use the nostalgia factor and to use my feelings, this is where us as fans do have a gripe, and that is Hollywood wants to use my nostalgia, my love for the old things, so that they can make their money back. It's almost like a con artist, little bait and switch. And then they act all like, well, what do you mean, you old fans? You should be in your basements with your grandma and you're smoking your peace pipe. No. You are consciously trying to get me, like you advertising with it, into the theater, so you can make some money off of it and sell your toys. That's why you want me into the theater, the people who are old Ghostbuster fans, and then you want to do what you want to do afterwards. No, it doesn't work that way. Do or do not. There is no try. Right? You can't try and like sell me on nostalgia and then shit on me after and this is not nostalgia, guys. This is the difference between nostalgia and not nostalgia, okay? When you first hear the trailer or the 30 years ago, these 4 scientists, blah, 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 blah. I don't even remember what it said, but it's something like that. 30 years ago, 4 scientists, paranormal, something, right? And then you see the symbol of the Ghostbusters symbol come out, and then you hear the little piano sound. I was like, okay. This is starting to feel, it, all right. Because that made me think that they're continuing it, right? It's part of the same universe, the sound, the logo being sprayed on the wall kind of made me feel like, hey guys, we remember the Ghostbusters, but it's old, and that's why they're spray painting it on the wall, something like that, right? And all of a sudden, no, it's just completely brand new. Let's swipe that whole thing clean. It was like, what? It was like the bait and switch. You brought me in with that, and then, by the way, here's a couple of girls that have never in a scenario that is brand new, has nothing to do at all with this universe, and you get that right away with the frickin' slime moment right in the face. Okay, Ghostbusters, and I'm not going to bring all that shit in again, but the feeling that slime had, it was like, oh yeah, remember that slime in Ghostbusters? Yeah, slime in the second Ghostbusters, and the first Ghostbusters, which was done very subtly. It was like, it almost looked like snot. It wasn't exactly green, glowing slime like a cartoon. Just because you throw slime and say, hey, remember slime? And then you throw some glow-in-the-dark, neon slime, it had nothing. It didn't open up. It was not the key that opened up the memories. It had nothing to do with it. The feeling was wrong. The context was wrong. The opening sequence to Ghostbusters was actually pretty terrifying. It was a very scary moment, and it was taken seriously. Ghostbusters was actually a very scary movie for the time. When I was younger, I was in 1984. I was still a kid, and I still remember my mom still kind of arguing with me not to see this movie. I think it was rated R, and I couldn't even see that movie. And so I saw it later on on the video, and even my mom was trying, oh, maybe you shouldn't watch it. It's too graphic. It took its horror elements seriously. The comedy derived from situations and from the characters, not from silly, queef jokes and slapping people like cartoons in the face. Those moments And it was filmed in New York, and believe it or not, New York also has a feeling. It's a city that I think that a lot of people don't realize there's a vibe to New York, and when it's filmed in New York, there's a weight, that is filmed there, and you can always tell when it's filmed in our city, Toronto, or filmed in Chicago. You can tell there's a difference. When you're filming something in New York, there's a difference. New York just has a vibe about it. There's a grittier sort of feeling to New York, and it has its own atmosphere. So all of the stuff combined, right away, we got this from the trailer. First of all, we didn't even need to see the movie. We knew the feelings were not going to be there right away. Right away. Everything about that trailer just screamed, this is not the Ghostbusters you're looking for. Right? It screamed right in your face that. So we know that's why everything was downvoted. It had nothing to do with the girls, although it had something to do with it, but not in the way that they thought. It wasn't because they were girls. It was because you were trying to assume that we cared that they were girls, and which we really didn't. If you made the context a different way, like all the girls just happened to be fans or the daughters of the original cast, and the original cast were there, we would have accepted it far greater than what you guys did. And you could have used the same exact girls. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have even mattered. And again, what I'm talking about, sticking in nostalgia and saying, hey guys, see this? Dan Aykroyd in a cab, Bill Murray doing that talk show. These little moments where they stick in these, and they're not doing it with malice intent. I get that. I get that Hollywood's really not doing these moments to screw with you. It feels like they are. It feels like you're trying to tease me with us. It's like a hungry person who's been wanting to eat who's been like starving for Ghostbusters 3 for the longest time. And they're like, here's a turkey dinner. And then you're like, oh my God, it's turkey. And then you show the turkey to somebody, and then, you get there, and, then psych, and they take it away from you. And it's not that they were doing it to spit in your face. It's just they don't get it. Showing me the old Ghostbusters doing other roles, it's like me seeing Dan Aykroyd in Blues Brothers is not going to make me feel nostalgia for Ghostbusters. It just won't. Why? Because they're two different movies. So just throwing an actor into a thing isn't going to, just because it's an actor, isn't going to make me feel the nostalgia for that specific thing. Just throwing Yoda into a movie isn't going to make me feel like that's Yoda. I have to understand that that's Yoda. Throwing Luke Skywalker into a movie isn't going to make me feel like that's Luke Skywalker. Just because you call him Luke Skywalker and he calls himself Luke Skywalker, but if he feels completely different from what he's supposed to be, he doesn't feel, and all that really matters is whether he feels like Luke Skywalker. That's all that really matters. You can use a different actor, as long as the actor makes you feel like that's the right. I mean, yeah, we prefer the original actor, but it doesn't, like, even if they do a new Indiana Jones, and listen, I know I'm a little bit odd, but again, Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull, for the most part, they got the feeling down. I think the end kind of threw people off because it wasn't so much that it was about aliens, it was about the context that aliens has its own vibe and religion has a different vibe, and to combine the two didn't work. And a lot of the silliness, listen, there's a lot of silliness in a lot of the movies, especially the second one, with them hopping over the tracks. There's a lot of silliness, a lot of ex machina stuff in all those movies. But it still sort of felt like Indiana Jones, everything that they did. The whole implementation of Shia LaBeouf, and it kind of took the focus away from Indy. All that stuff made you feel like this doesn't feel right. And also his age. His age just, it was impractical for what he was doing. You can't see an old Indiana Jones, oh, my hip, God damn it. No, it didn't work. We were logically going, no. I get it. We kind of want to see it, but not like this. Not like this! Which is why I don't mind if they were to actually do a new Indiana Jones and bring in a different actor. As long as they got the character right, the scenes right, the recapture, everything else right about the movie, the actor shouldn't make that big of a difference. And James Bond is a good example of how you can switch an actor, or even Batman. You could switch an actor from this to that, and as long as it remains consistent with the universe, we can kind of get along. Like, it'll take a moment of adjustment. There is always a moment of adjustment. We can live with the momentary adjustment of this actor. The Hulk, another example. Edward Norton played the Hulk, and then Ruffalo played the Hulk, and we kind of like, I don't know, it's still the same universe. We adjusted to it. You'll still adjust. As long as the actor does a good job, as long as everything else in the movie is fine and gives you that feeling, you can adjust to it. So Hollywood, understand, it's the feels. We'll never feel the way we did when we were kids. We'll never recapture that old Star Wars moment. We'll never recapture that old Jurassic Park feeling. We're never going to recapture our childhood. It's never going to happen. I collect toys. I have a lot of movie toys. You can see the Ghostbusters and Godzilla, and when I look at these things, Knight Rider, when I look at the toys that I have, I'm not a collector in the same way a lot of people collect. I'll give you, this is one of my prized possessions. This is a book, Back to the Future, and inside it's pretty much like all the moments in the movie. Like it has the, look at that, it has a cutout of the Jaws movie that was playing, remember, in the theater in the second one. It even has the letter, the Doc Brown. Look, do not, I don't know if you can see it, it's too bright, but it says here, do not open till 1985, Hill Valley High School. Like, it's such a great book, and I love this thing. This is my favorite movie of all time. I love Back to the Future. One day I'll talk about more of it, but, you know, and as a kid growing up, Michael J. Fox was my idol. I dressed like Michael J. Fox. I learned to talk like Michael J. Fox. As an actor, whenever I do it, even everyone says, why do you sound like Marty? It's just innately I do. I just like, what are you talking about? Talk! It just happened over years of watching it that it became part of me. And every time I read this book, I watch this book, it unlocks a moment of me watching this movie at a different time in my life. Or it takes me back to, you know, me as a kid and how much this movie influenced me as a child. And that's why we collect things. I collect this. And people think, oh, you're childish. It's not because I'm childish. Look, a part of me understands that I'm an adult and that I do adult things, and you go to work and you have kids and you do all this stuff. We understand that, but you still want to be connected to your youth in some ways, right? You still want to be connected to who you are as a child. Not because you want to be a child, but because it was a simpler time. It was a time in your life when everything sort of was just like, you know, innocent. You had little worries. Okay, some kids had big worries. Some kids had bullies and stuff. Not everybody had those. And sometimes a memory could unlock, you know, vicious memories. And sometimes a movie could associate bad things. I get that. But you tend to cling to the good ones. And it's not about childish or anything like that. It's just about, reconnecting with the old ways. And so understand that, Hollywood. Understand that moment. Understand that's what we're trying to do. That we're trying to reconnect with an old feeling, okay? And as long as you give us a decent story, not a story that's not convoluted and all over the place, a story that makes sense with the characters, give us the feeling of the movie, all right? Understand really dissect it when you're doing it. Dissect the feeling of what made this movie feel a certain way, or a show. What made it feel a certain way? And it's not that hard. It's a layup, man. It's a layup. You have the template. The original movie exists. You have the template for it. And do we always need a new movie to be made? Not always. I never want to see this movie remade. Ever. This movie is so good, and the effects are still, you know, adequate to the point where I don't need them to remake. You're never going to recapture Michael J. Fox's performance. You're not going to recapture Doc Brown. You're not going to recapture their chemistry. Not the way it was. And so you can try, but it'll be a hollow shell and it won't work. And now that's why I don't ever want to see it. It doesn't have to be done. The story concludes. It's a full trilogy and it makes sense. You can continue it if you want, but it will be convoluted and it won't make any sense. And there's no needs to do it. You make something else new. Make a different trilogy of something else, right? You don't always have to bring back the story. You don't have to bring Harry Potter back. You know, we don't have to see an old Harry Pothead. Hogwarts needs you, Harry Potter. You know, 50 years in the future. Hogwarts needs you again, Paul Harry. And he's like this old, grizzly British dude with like full beard and long hair, smoking. You know, I'm sorry, I'd like to help you. But unfortunately, I turned my wand into a bong. You know, don't turn Harry Potter into that guy. We don't want to see an old maid, Hermione. You know, right? Hogwarts? Where? Yeah, I've got a few Hogwarts now that I'm old. We don't want to see that, okay, guys? Just remember, a new story, new people capture the same vibration, the same vibe, the same atmosphere, the same mood, the same tone, the same, you know, that's what we need. Those things. It's those cues, it's the costumes, the sets, all that stuff helps. When you see the Millennium Falcon, it doesn't matter when you put it, it has that nostalgic feeling because it doesn't matter. Unless you change the Millennium Falcon's color to green, it'll always carry the same weight wherever you go. Because it's an object, it's not a person, it doesn't get old. And so you know, it doesn't get older to the point of unrecognizable. More than anything, capture the tone, the feeling. And that's how you honor something from the past. And it's not about honoring it, it's just, you don't need to, if you're not going to do that, then there's no point in doing it at all. And this is why Hollywood doesn't understand that, because you want to make money. It's all about making money, and I get the reason why you want to remake these movies. It's about making money. Let's be honest. We all get that. We're not stupid. We understand that. But don't you think you'd make more money if you get the new and the old happy? Not just the new. The new kids don't have the same emotional attachment, so they're not going to be like, I don't understand your anger towards Luke Skywalker. You don't, because you weren't raised that way. Those who watched Harry Potter growing up, and it suddenly turned Harry Potter into Harry Pothead, you'd get it. You'd understand, right? You'd get that. Harry reclusive pothead who doesn't want to come and join the thing because he's too afraid. You'd get that, right? You'd understand that from a point of view. If we did that to now, like to Iron Man in the future, where Iron Man way in the future no longer wants to don the Iron Man outfit because he hates Iron Man and hates Avengers and refuses to and never changes and is stubborn the whole way through, then you'd hate it too. Because you were raised with a different Iron Man, and that's not the Iron Man you remember. That's not the Iron Man that's going to unlock it. And if you're unlock the memories, and if you're not going to bring the Iron Man or the Han Solo or the Luke Skywalker that's going to unlock the memories, then there's no point in doing it at all. Unless all you want to do is make money. But you'll make more money if you do it, okay? You could serve both motives if you do it properly. Force Awakens was not a very good movie. It was an adequate movie, but it gave you the feeling. To some it didn't, okay? You can't please everyone all the time. But to most of us you did. This did not. Last Jedi does not. Star Trek Discovery does not. Orville does a better job. You see, Orville, completely different cast. And this is a prime example of what I'm talking about. The Orville, for those people who don't know, the Orville is a show that mimics SG-1. It's supposed to be like a parody of SG-1. See, Seth MacFarlane, he could tell he's a Star Trek fan. He liked, and he wanted to do a Star Trek series, but CBS didn't approve of it, so he went to Fox and pitched the show The Orville, which was supposed to be sort of like it was like an honorary to Star Trek SG-1. And you see how the way that the show's structured, how it feels. And again, I see the word feels always comes into play. Because why? That's the key factor. Critics do not like The Orville. Because critics they're looking at it from a critical perspective. They're looking at it from a less emotional standpoint and a more critical standpoint, which is fine for critics. But really what matters in the box office, shit, there's a freaking hair. Where did this hair come from? Critics are looking at it from a colder, more distant, a standpoint, whereas that's not what we're looking at. As a fan, we're looking at it from an emotional standpoint. And that's why, and really, we're all the ones that matters, because we're the ones that pay the money for it. You know, the critics can say whatever they want, because they're trying to be thespians. And I'm a critic, and I'm going to critique this based on its visuals and the writing and all the storytelling and like, okay, all those things are important, but it's like, there's a balance that has to be met, and so they're looking at it from that perspective. We're looking at it from a how did we feel perspective, and we're looking at the show, and the show, got it right. It got Star Trek more right than Star Trek did. The new Discovery show says, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to have a different tone. We're going to have crazy camera work. We're going to have characters that are all over the place that are different. The show is completely, has a completely different tone and feel than the original series and TNG. TNG, like The Next Generation. And so that's why we look at the Orville and we're like, the Orville feels more like Star Trek than that. And that's why a lot of fans are more, not that the Discovery's a bad show. It's a good show. I like it. It's just not good. It's just not a good Star Trek show. You understand what I'm saying? When I watch Star Trek, I watch it from a vision that I wish they called it something else. You want to call it the Discovery, call it a different world and all that other stuff. All the aliens are different in the Orville. All the rules are different. All the stuff is different, but for some reason it feels more like Star Trek. And that's a prime example of what I'm trying to say. One gives me a nostalgic feeling, even though it has nothing to do with Star Trek. It's not called Star Trek. It doesn't have any of the old captains, and then doesn't have Kirk, doesn't have Spock, doesn't have none of that. Doesn't have Picard, but it has so many different feels and so many different beats that it hits, that it's enough for us to bring us to that feeling. You get it? Whereas this, even though it has phasers, and it has Klingons, and it has Vulcans, and it has old characters like Sarek in it, it doesn't feel like it, because you can call a flower anything, but if it's a piece of shit, it's a piece of shit. So you could say, well, this piece of shit is a flower, but it looks like a piece of shit, smells like a piece of shit, and it feels like a piece of shit. So call it a rose, but it's A piece of shit by any other name is still a piece of shit. So guys, in conclusion, all I gotta say is we all want remakes, right? We all, as much as we like to complain about them, as much as we say, oh, why did they do this? Why did they remake this? Why did they bring this back from my childhood? Why did they bring in this cartoon? As much as we complain about it, the truth is they make them because we want them. If they didn't make money and they knew they couldn't get us in the theater, they wouldn't do it. Okay, so to pretend that we don't want this is fallacy, right? Truth is, we want the feelies. We need the feelies. You want me in that theater. You need me in that theater. A Few Good Men, good movie. We have to understand then that us as the fans of these properties and the Hollywood, the people who want to make money off of the fans in these of these properties, we kind of have to come to an understanding, okay? An understanding of, number one, the reason we want these movies is, of course, the feels, all right? We want to recapture the feels. And it's not always going to be easy. I mean, certain times there's lightning in a bottle, and it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to recapture that. There is ways of doing it, right? The Orville, I gave you an example of the Orville, how they did it really well. And they didn't even have to use the name Star Trek or the characters of Star Trek, but they still made you feel give you more of the feeling of Star Trek than actual Star Trek. Now, it's a hollow shell. It still doesn't complete the feel. There's still something off about it, right? I mean, because it's sort of almost like a parody of itself. Well, not a parody in itself, but it's more like a clone. It's more like a poorly done clone. And it does kind of give you the feeling, but there's something still missing, right? There's never going to be a perfect recreation. Star Wars came out, and it was groundbreaking, right? Cinematically, it was groundbreaking. Technology was groundbreaking. And something like that hadn't really been done. And that came at a time when everybody was sort of depressed in the 70s and everything like that. And it was just like, people latched onto it, right? And it was almost like it was a defining moment, in the late 70s. So nothing could touch it at that moment, at that time. The Jurassic Park, well, not to the degree of Star Wars, for me, had a similar impact, but in cinema, in the fact that it changed. You always saw these stop motion dinosaurs that were like, oh, they're cute, but they didn't really feel real, right? Never put you in the theater the way Jurassic Park did. Yeah, so these things are going to be hard to recapture. Now, not to say that is even impossible. I mean, one of my favorite directors is James Cameron, if not my favorite director. And that's because it doesn't matter what movie he's come out with, he always tries to break ground. He always tries to, with The Abyss. He broke ground with Terminator 2. He broke ground with Titanic. Nobody had used CGI water like that before. You look at it now, it kind of looks bad. But at the time it was done. It was groundbreaking. He rebuilt the entire Titanic, for God's sakes. He never chinsed out. Everything he did with purpose. He did to push the envelope. And that's why I respect him. And he doesn't fail very often. Bloody Aliens. I mean, Aliens was freaking phenomenal. A completely different movie. Just think about how brave it was to make Aliens, which was a suspense thriller, into an action movie. And he still succeeded doing it. He brought in new technologies that he hadn't seen. He didn't shit on the old. He just built on, and that's another good thing about it. Think about Aliens for a minute. He didn't take a crap on the old shit. He didn't change the aliens. He didn't change anything he didn't change Ripley. He didn't change any of the stuff from the past. He didn't change it. All he did, he used it, right? He used the robots. He used everything, the ships. He used it, but enhanced it. And he actually added to it and made it better. He added new creations, new cars, like the robot. He added to the universe that wasn't even his own. So that just shows that you can do it. You can add to the Star Wars universe without shitting on the old stuff. You can build on it. Right? Instead of like this empty hollow clone that you want to create. He didn't do it like that. Aliens is one of my favorite movies for that reason. The balls that robot versus the mother alien at the end. Just think about the balls of that. At the time too. It was completely different from the first movie. Like not even like you would think they were completely two different movies. But it was still the same line, still same franchise. Felt like it's in the same world, and it still felt like the old Aliens. It just amped it to a different degree. And it was mind-boggling how James Cameron did that. I still don't understand how you can, it's like, that to me is lightning in a bottle. But it just shows that it can be done. And that's what I mean, like, for Star Wars or for Star Trek, it's not about giving me what I've already seen, and that's only going to make me happy. I mean, sure, that'll give me the emotional, the somewhat emotional feels. But there's more to it than that. There's also the We want to see further into it. We want to see going forward, how is it going to be? Give us more of the lore, more of what we don't have. And that's without scrapping the old. You don't have to scrap the old. You don't have to shit on the old. You don't have to tear apart what we already know. You don't have to change it. Like, you don't have to change the Klingons. You don't have to change, just give us better. Give us more technology. Show you have creativity. That is, in essence, a huge problem with Hollywood. They don't show they have creativity. Oh, I don't care. I don't know. They like AT-ATs, right? We'll just give them bigger arms. They'll be AT-AT monkey version. You know, that's not creative. Creative is introducing a brand new ship, not making the same ship bigger or making the same Death Star bigger. That's not creativity. Creativity is saying we'll add with adding a new ship, something that maybe is a different ship, maybe completely different look, right? You can still sprinkle the old stuff with the new stuff. You don't have to take away to add. And as fans, we have to understand that it's hard to recapture this, and we got to take these properties with a grain of salt and realize that they're never going to give us what we really want to recapture. And I know a lot of us even say that we want to reboot a movie that maybe is outdated, and we look at it when we were a kid. This is how we felt. And we want our kids to appreciate it. They're going to look at the old stuff that we had and be like, I don't know about that movie. That movie looks so fake. The monster looks fake in that movie. How can you like that, Dad? And I can understand from the kid's perspective, who's like the video games and the video games have way better technology than the movies back in the day. So he's looking at this going, I can't get into it. And so you want to reboot so that he can experience what you experienced, or she can experience what you experienced. The thing is, it's almost impossible to do as well, because everything is different. The time is different. The people are different. It's not going to ever be the same. Again, I still don't think they shouldn't try. It's just that if you are going to do it, you have to keep one thing in mind. Hollywood, listen up! If you're going to do it smartly. Yes, story structure has to be good. Acting has to be good. Those are things you don't even have to say. Those are the things we understand for every movie and everything that even television shows you should have, right? So that goes without saying. One of the most important things that they get wrong all of the time is the mood, the atmosphere, the feeling that it gives you. If you want to recapture a feeling of something that's groundbreaking, then make something groundbreaking. I know it's hard to say, but if you got the money like Walt Disney has, come up with a technology we haven't seen before. Say, we want to reintroduce Star Wars, not as Star Wars as, and this is, I actually, the prequels I think George Lucas was trying to do. He introduced a digital way of filming, which was different, and it was kind of groundbreaking too. In the fact that everything was done by film, but it was more of a lazy groundbreaking and doing everything green screen than it was an actual good groundbreaking. But it was an attempt, and I think even they had all the clones. I remember this whole thing about each clone that he had in the Clone Wars was he gave each CGI character their own AI, his own artificial intelligence, sort of. I think that's true. If I'm wrong, please correct me on the comments. But I believe, if my memory serves me, that they actually tried that. And then he was trying to build and do things, and it failed. Sometimes when you try things, it fails. Sometimes you try things, it succeeds, right? But you got to try. Otherwise, we left with the stagnant thing that we're at right now, where everyone's too afraid to do anything different and new. And look at James Cameron right now. He's building 4 new movies of Avatar, and he's still trying to do something groundbreaking. And everyone's like, I don't know, people are going to be... Trust me, when Avatar comes out, you're not even going to care about the original Avatar. Because I know James Cameron, he's going to come out and say, I know my flaws from the old one, and everybody not like it, but whatever he's going to do, he's going to push the envelope to do. So at least I'm going to have to respect him for that. So when these next Avatar movies come out, watch. This is going to be groundbreaking. Because I know him, and he always does that. That's what he drives him to do. And the same thing, I wish every director would do that. I mean, the old directors kind of do it, used to do it. But these new guys, it's not even the director's fault. It's the studios. They're just afraid. But understand, you're not making money not trying either. Right now, things are kind of like people are tired of not having new things. People are tired of the same old, same old. People want new. The things that made the old stuff great wasn't that they were remaking things either. Think about that for a minute. The reason we liked stuff from the 80s, like Gremlins, Beetlejuice, all these ideas that came from the 80s that we remember fondly, Back to the Future, all these movies that we look up to and we go, oh my god, they wish they'd remake this and that and this. What made them great was they were original ideas. Most of the time. They were original ideas someone created and someone took a chance. Even think about Ghostbusters, for heaven's sakes. Just think about pitching that movie today. A group of ugly, middle-aged men, not ugly, but not necessarily Hollywood attractive. Not like me. Little Ace Ventura for you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we have this middle-aged men who decide who wear exterminator suits, you know, and want to catch ghosts with like this, I don't know, laser beam. That sounds like a stupid premise when you go to a studio. So we got these middle-aged men, right? And do they have a woman, a love interest? Yeah, there's a love interest, yes, sort of. And then we have, you know, these ghosts, and there's a ghost in the fridge. The eggs frying on the thing, and oh, okay. There's a dog in the apartment, and I think the studio would have slammed the door and hailed Raymond. Next, if it came out today, right? But they took a chance on it. They took a chance. And that's the thing about the 80s. A lot of times, I'm going to do another segment on why I like the 80s and the mid 90s and mid 70s. Was because I think Hollywood was at its prime of not just of taking chances, and the technology was adequate, and the storytelling was great. All that culminated for great, like, 2 decades of great movie making, and that's why we still appreciate them today. Not that there wasn't great things before that or after. It's just I think those were the peak years for me. I believe. But they were groundbreaking. They were looking to the future. They were trying to do new things, and to me, that's what it should always be about: is trying to introduce new things. Star Trek shouldn't be going into the past. Star Trek should be going to the future. You should never do prequels of Star Trek. The prequels have proven never to work. Because Star Trek is to boldly go where no man has gone before, right? It's never to boldly go where we've been in the past. That's not what it's about, right? And they forget about that. So when you see all these things, we're going to change the Klingons, we're going to add this, we're going to do all that. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't. And you're not going to recapture the same thing. So you might as well call it the Discovery its own show. And people would say, hey, for its own thing, it's great. Ghostbusters would have worked if they called it their own thing. Paranormal investigatists, paranormal defeatists, you know, something like that. Call it something different. People would have accepted it, right? It's not that necessarily we hated everything that was done in the movies. It's just that when you have something that's established, you're carrying baggage that comes with it. You know, and if you just think you're just going to shed the baggage and do whatever you want, well, I'm afraid, my friend, that doesn't work that way. So going forward, if you want to make these things right, just focus on the feeling. All right, try and get a focus group of people who had seen it in the past. Get a group of people like me or other people who love these movies, and say, not what do you want to see in it, because that's obvious. We all want to see AT-ATs and the Millennium Falcon and Yoda. We want to see those things. Sure, we like them sprinkled in here and there. That's not the essence of it. You ask the question is, why? Why did we like this movie? What was it about Star Wars? What was it about Jurassic Park? What was it about E.T.? Whatever the hell it is. What was it about these movies that impacted your life? That's what you do in the focus groups. Before you even start the movie. Why? Why did you like it? What feeling did you get when you watched this movie? And then you say, well, this is the feeling we got. Exhilaration, it was fun, it felt new, it felt, it was sad, it made me feel warm, it made me closer to my dad. And they say, okay, well, these are the feelings that these movies brought. Now you get people in the drawing room to say, all right, guys, the director and the writing team, you say, we need to hit these beats, guys, these emotional beats. We got to make sure that the feeling, the music is better. Not just retape old John Williams music. You know, Phantom Menace was great. You can have old John Williams music in there. Add to it, add something, sprinkle in a little new stuff into it. You know, so you have these people, and they build on their emotional responses to these questions. And then from there you base the story, right? You start saying, well, we need to hit these emotional beats. That's an obvious. And if we want them to recapture at least some, you're never going to recapture all, but some of the feeling from the old. So then you get those emotional beats, you write the story. Stories are not that hard to write. There's a zillion people who are wonderful storytellers, and you could probably give them 5 minutes. And you're being serious. You can give people 5 minutes, and they'll come up with something half decent. Right? I'm not saying that's all you deserve is half decent. I'm just saying you could do that. It's not hard, but you shouldn't just do one movie at a time. Do 3 movies, 4 movies looking forward. Actually, write a freaking write the history of the character and the forward going, not all at the same time. Don't just introduce a character. I don't know who the hell taught these people how to write scripts. everyone knows when you write a script, you're supposed to know everything about the character, the past and the future. You don't just make shit up at the character as you go along, because then you have these issues that the Last Jedi had. Don't shit on the past. Don't lift your leg like a dog and like the Ghostbusters did, like that was all a fire hydrant and just urinate all over it. That's not gonna make fans happy, and then publicly humiliate the fans by calling them, well, they like to live in their basements and shit. No, you just took something we've been wanting for years, like Ghostbusters 3, and you just said all the hopes you thought you were gonna get of a Ghostbusters 3, psych, in the garbage. Don't even call it Ghostbusters, because you're going to lose money. So if you want to make money, that's fine. But you're not making money the way you're doing. You're not making good money. You might make okay money. You might break even. You might make a little profit. But just think of all the money you're leaving on the table. Think of all the toys that Ghostbusters left on the table. The money that the Last Jedi is going to leave on the table. China just threw it out the door. China wants nothing to do with this movie. Say, and one more thing, because this affects us, YouTube people, right? So these people who want to know why things become viral, why things don't become viral, and it's the same reason, right? You could write the most fantastic, story-structured, amazing video, and you can have like great effects that you have and pour a lot of money into something. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a success online. Something you pour your heart out and spend a ton of money on could be beaten by a dog kicking a baby in the testicles, which I want to see. If anybody has a video of a dog kicking a baby in the testicles, I'm all up in that. That should have been in The Last Jedi. Would have made the movie 300 times better. Some random scene where Luke is standing in the field, the hologram Luke, and then this dog comes in the middle and just hoofs Kylo Ren in the testicles and then walks off. Those weird ice dogs or crystal dogs, whatever the hell they are. So you get what I'm saying? Though that baby video made people laugh. It made people go like, and that's a feeling, right? The joy, happiness, it's a feeling. Like there is a method to the madness of viral videos. It's a feeling. People just, if you want a video to go viral, guys, kick a baby in the nuts. I'm telling you, that shit will go crazy. So anyway, do you guys agree with me? I really don't care. I agree with me. And I'm all that matters. Right, Shane? Right, Shane? So guys, like I said, tell me what you think. Let me know if you agree. That's all I really have to say about all this. Subscribe on my channel. Leave comments. Like and share with your friends. Have tickle fights. Why did I say have tickle fights? Because tickle fights are fun. And I hope my video made you feel something. If not angry, then maybe happy, maybe, confused. It's really what I think I want. I'm going for the feeling of my video, is for the audience to go, that's a feeling. Confusion. I don't know what I saw. What is this guy talking about? You're all over the place. Yeah, so anyway, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. And I've adopted this, official. This is who I am. Alright guys, see you later.